Multiplying two-digit by two-digit numbers.
Welcome to 5E. This is Mrs. Edie just trying to explain to you how to do two-digit by two-digit multiplication. Now there's a lot of different ways to do multiplication. Some people like certain ways better than others, and so my job is to teach you different ways so that you can pick one that's going to work for you. It's also beneficial for parents to know the different ways, because a lot of times kids come home with homework and the parents can't help them because they've never seen different ways. So I'm going to show you 4 different ways, and then your child can pick which one works best for him or her. So the traditional method is the one that we grew up with, where you have the algorithm where you just multiply the ones by the ones on top. So you're going to go 1 times 2 is 2, and you put the 2 down. That's step number 1. Step number 2, you're going to go sideways. You're going to go 1 times 3, and you put the 3 right beside the 2. That's 32. So what we just did is we times 1 times 32, and we have 32 on the bottom. Step number 3, now what we're going to do is we're going to move over to the tens. So we put a 0 there as a placeholder. And the reason why is because we have to make sure that when we go into the tens that these numbers are going to line up properly. So we put our 0 here, and then we start multiplying, starting with the tens. We go the tens to the 1 digit, because in multiplication, I need to make sure that I multiply each one of these digits by the numbers on top. So when I start here with the 2, I go to the ones. 2 times 2 is 4. I put it right beside the 0. And the last step, I will go straight up, and I will go 2 times 3, and that will be 6. And so once I have these numbers lined up very carefully, I'm going to do the last step, which is going to be add. So right here, this number here, 32 plus 640, 2 plus 0 is 2, 4 plus 3 is 7, and then you drop down a 6. So you're going to
32 plus 640 equals 672. Therefore, our question, 32 times 21 equals 672. All right, in method number 2, we call this one the array method. When kids learn how to multiply in grade 3, they use objects. So basically, if I have something like this, which represents 3 times 3, I would have 3 groups of 3. 1 group of 3, 2 groups of 3, 3 groups of 3. So the multiplication sign means groups of. So this is really easy to add up and see visually, and you can get an answer with an array like this, working with objects easily when they're small numbers. When we move up to grade 5, we are dealing with 2-digit times 2-digit numbers. That's a little bit harder to represent with items because there would be too many. What this 32 really means is 32 groups of 21. Over here, I have base 10 blocks, and you can see them, the base 10 blocks here that are lined up in groups. If this was a rod of 10, that would be 10, 21, and that would be 21 32 times, because that's what multiplication really is. It's repeated adding. So here I have 21 32 times. I will show you how we draw arrays in class to represent that. Instead of drawing all the little blocks, I just basically group them into sections. I group them into tens and ones. I will make that 20 and a 1 over here. And I'll break this into tens and ones. And that will be a 30 and a 2. And so I'm just going to show you, if I cover these up with these hundreds up with green, to visually show you the different parts. It makes it easier to see them. Okay, so now we're going to do some multiplication. The first step that we're going to do is we're going to multiply the 30 times the 20. And so if I multiply 30 times 20, if I multiply the first digits and I get a 6, I simply have to just add the zeros to make 600. And that's a multiplication strategy that the kids will learn. The next step is after I multiply the 30 times the 20, I need to multiply the 30 times the 1. So 30 times 1 is 30. And if you can see on this section over here that represents these 3 10 bars that are yellow, that represents 30. Next, we're going to go down to the 1s here, and we're going to multiply up to the 10s as well. We're going to go 2 times 20 because we need to see how much of this orange section is taken up down below here. So there's 2 here, but there's 20 across. So 2 times 20 would be 40. We simply multiply the first digits, add the 0. And the last little section that we're going to multiply is this very corner here. And we see 2 blocks here, and we see 1 single block row down the side. So we go 2 times 1, and this represents 2. These 2 little blocks right here. Now the next step that we do is we just add. And on here you can see that this is really easy to add. I basically have 600 here. Then I just add up my 40. I always go with my largest numbers to my smallest. Right down the side here, I have 30. I will add the 30 onto that, and then I have the little 2 at the end, and I just add them all up. I have to make sure that I line these numbers up nicely, because if I don't, I will get them in the wrong place value. Then simply add them up. A 0, 0, 0, and a 2 is a 2. A 4 plus 3 is a 7. And you carry the 6 down. There's nothing there. You imagine those are zeros, and you get 672 for the answer. So this is 600. Again, this stands for the 40. This stands for the 30 here. And this would be the 2. 672. And it's just that easy. All right, now I'm going to show you method 3. This one works really well in conjunction with the arrays because it really shows you where that place value is and which blocks that you're dealing with. So I'm going to start this one in the tens column. And the reason that we start here is because we're going to get the biggest numbers here, and I'll show you why. This number here actually represents 20. This is 21, so this represents 20. This number above it represents 30 for 32. So when we're multiplying, we need to multiply the 20 times the 30 and the 20 times the 2. So I'm just going to go, step 1 is going to be the tens. 20 times 30. And that's going to give me, just like we said before, 600. Now if you look in the side here, you can see how that matches with the array here. That refers to the 600 with the array blocks that we were working with earlier. Step number 2, I've just multiplied the tens times the tens. Now we had mentioned that we also have to multiply the tens times the ones. So I'm going to multiply 20 times 2. And 20 times 2, we tell the kids 2 times 2 is 4, and then you just have 1 0, that's 40. And I need to line these up because, as you can see, if I do not line them up properly, I will not be able to add them up correctly at the end. Now that I've multiplied these 2 digits, I'm going to switch partners. I'm going to move over, and I'm going to now deal with the ones. So this stands for 1. And I'm going to multiply straight up, the 1 times the 2. 1 times 2 is going to equal 2. And the last step is I'm going to go right over to the corner here because this digit needs to multiply the ones and the tens. So this stands for 30. So we're going to go 1 times 30. And that equals 30. And then I just do the same thing as I did before. I line them up and I add. So I have a 2, 4 plus 3 is 7, and then my 6 comes down, and my answer is 672. And it's just that easy. The last method that I'm going to show you is called the lattice multiplication. With this multiplication style, what we do is again, we are going to put the tens and the ones separately down the side. We're going to write the numbers that we're multiplying on the top and the side, so that would be 49 times 19. Then we would multiply the single digits on the top by the single digits to fill in the squares. So for this example that they've shown, it's 1 times 9 would be 9. You can put the 0 in if you want. You don't have to. You can just leave it blank. Then I'm going to move over and multiply the 1 times the tens over here. So 1 times 4 would be 4, or 4 tenths. I'm going to move now down to the tens, and I'm going to multiply these two digits, the 9 times the 9, which is 81. So I would write the 8 up top, the 1 on the bottom, and the last step would be the 9 times 4, which is 36. And that's 36 tenths, but we'll just write 36 in the box. Now the really interesting thing about this style here is now on step 3, we're going to add diagonally to find our answer. And if we do have any digits to carry, then we just carry them to the next place, and we'll be showing you that in this example. So for example, when we look at this diagonal now, in here we only have a 1, and so in here I write a 1 here. In this diagonal right here, I have digits to add. I have a 9, an 8, and 6. So a 6 and 8 is 14, plus 9 is 23. So I simply put the 3 down, and I'm going to carry the 2 into the next column. The last column here, the diagonals are 4 and a 3, which equals 7, but I'm going to add the 2 that I carried over to make 9. And this becomes my answer, 931. So I'm going to show you that same technique with the numbers we have been working on in the previous methods, the 32 times the 21. And some people get worried about the lattice and they say, well, I don't have the boxes ready. It's really easy to build one, and I'll show you that in a moment. But basically, I'm going to plug my numbers in. We have 32, let's go over that a little darker, times 21. And again, I just start multiplying. The big thing about multiplication is I always have to multiply both numbers by the tens and the ones. So I'll start right here. 2 times 2 is 4. So I put my 4 in the bottom part. The top would be the tens, the bottom would be the ones. I move over to the tens. 2 times 3 is 6. That would be 6 tens. I just put in the bottom box as well. I'll move down to my next digit, which is a 1. 1 times 2 is 2. I will put this in the bottom box. And the last one, 1 times 3 is 3. I'll put it in the bottom box. Now comes the fun. We'll look at the diagonals. In this particular diagonal, we only have a 2. So I write down a 2. This diagonal right here, there's 2 digits, a 4 and a 3. If you add them together, you will get 7. And the last one, we have a lonely old 6. We put that there, and my answer would be 672, which is the same answer we got in the other styles. It's just another way of showing it. I'll show you how to make your own box so that you don't have to worry about this being a difficult procedure. So what I do is if I have 2 digit times 2 digit, I just start with a box of 4, and I will write my 32 times 21, and then I simply just think about making that box in half. And so and then these diagonals can just come down to the paper here to keep you sorted. And it's just that easy. So whether you use the traditional, the array, the expanded, or the lattice method, the most important thing is finding the right one for you.